Hello everyone and welcome to the new Coach of Academy Lab Guide. I'm Corentin Guinez, driver for Streamers 3, and today we are here for the week 11 of this podcast challenge by Falcon Tire around the battle circuit with the BMW M4 GT4 EVO. As usual, at first we're gonna have a look at the hot lap and then we will see the different details you have to know before heading into the mountain. So yep, let's get started. Alright, so we got the hot lap around the battle circuit, so we are heading into the first corner. Ideally, you want to try to make sure you're not carrying too much speed on the entry, so then you can have a good launch on the exit, trying to open the steering quickly, playing around a bit with the curbing on the exit. And then we have a long straight. So basically, back in the days, you could just drive in the middle and going a bit faster, but now it doesn't really matter. So you can pretty much drive everywhere you want. Now, going to the on the brakes, and then we just try to make sure we are sticking close to the curbing, making sure we are not using too much curbing on the exit as well, but it's quite okay most of the time. Now going through the cutting, trying to make sure we are putting the car quite wide on the entry, and then opening the steering quite early to carry a lot of speed. Now we're gonna go into the mountain, so we just try to keep as much speed as possible, staying flat out. As you can see, need to make sure you are quick on the steering. Now through those left-handers, trying to carry as much speed as possible without having to slow down on the exit through McPhillamy Park, trying to carry a lot of speed as well, bringing the car to the curb on the right, entering Skyline, and now you just try to pretty much bring the car as straight as possible on the braking, so then you don't really upset the balance. Through the deeper, trying to carry as much speed as possible, and now we're gonna go through Forest Elbow, just going on the brake, and now we're just gonna try to prepare as good as we can the exit, trying to get it tight, and then opening the steering on the exit, trying to go close to the wall on the exit, and now we are going through Conrod Straight, so a bit of rest after those very technical corners, and now we are going up the crest, and from now we can start to see the chase. Gonna go with 6th gear all the way, and we're gonna try to brake around the 150, trying to make sure we're not carrying too much speed there because we want a good exit, basically to prepare the run to the last corner, bringing the car to the right, braking around the 100, and pretty much the same as what we've done for turn 1, trying to make sure we are not putting too much effort on the entry, but really focusing on the exit, and we are crossing the line, and we're done for the lap around Bathurst. Alright, so we go for the guide this time, so we're gonna go a bit slowly through the lap, and we will start right now with the turn 1. So as I said during the hot lap, basically you're trying to make sure you're not running too much speed going into those corners, especially this first one and the one before, which are really similar because that's 90 degrees corners. So yeah, ideally into those ones you want to make sure you get a really clean entry, so then you can start to push harder on the exit, as you have especially for turn 1 a long straight after that. So ideally at first, back in the days, we had a bit more than force, I guess, on the GT4, and we were having a bit less top speed, but now we have more top speed and a bit less downforce, I would say. So we have to brake a bit earlier. So now we have to brake pretty much between the 100 and the 50. Like the 100 is just right here, and yeah, as you can see, getting closer to the 50. So we might be pretty much between the two. So just make sure you're not braking too late for that one. And as you can see, we're just gonna go on the brake, trying to reach out about 70%, just trying to make sure basically that we are not going too much on the ABS, and then that's quite easy. You just try to release the brakes, getting the rotation. You can use a bit of curb on the inside, but usually I prefer not to use it too much because I don't want to have it too unpredictable, especially on the exit as soon as you are leaving the curb. So I prefer to just drive around, but yeah, if you drive on it, it's not too bad as well. It can be done quite okay, I would say, but yeah, just like that, I just like drove a tiny bit on the edge, but yeah, at that point, it doesn't even feel like you're running on the curb. And as I said on the hot lap, ideally, you just want to make sure you make most of the. When I said during the hot lap in the last corner that you have to make sure you're not making too much effort going into those corners. When I say not too much effort, is not pushing too much, basically because you want to push on the exit, but going um, a bit easy on the entry means that you can push harder on the exit, and that's what you want. You don't want to push too much on the entry because then this means you might be on the back foot for the exit and then for the straights. So of course you want to make the effort on the entry to make it clean, but in terms of effort, I meant not pushing too much on the entry, and that's what we're making there, trying to make sure we make it clean, so then we can, as soon as we are facing the exit, open the steering, a bit of oversteer, but it was really manageable. And then yeah, just making sure we're not going too wide, opening the steering, flooring the throttle very early, as you can see, and then we have the run for the first straight of the track. So now we can go a bit fast forward because there is nothing really interesting. As I said, no need to drive in the middle. The past seasons you could just drive in the middle and gain a bit of time. Now it doesn't happen anymore. It's not like Le Mans where you have to drive in the middle of the track. Now it seems like at Bathurst it doesn't work um anymore, at least with the GT4. So yeah, now going into turn 2, we're just gonna brake close to the exit road on the left, pretty much between the end road and the exit road. But yeah, just trying to make sure we're not braking too late into the exit road. Braking around 70% once again, trying to make sure we're not braking too hard because we don't want to get into the ABS. And then I just try to make sure I bring the car close to the curbing. Need to be a bit patient because you don't want to floor it too early and bring the car wide too early at the same time. So yeah, you just try to keep the car quite close, or as close as you can, basically, without touching the curb on the entry, because on the inside, because then it's gonna make the car losing its grip. But yeah, you just try to wait until you are really seeing the exit, and as soon as you start to really see the exit, then you can just go on power a bit harder, I would say. And yeah, ideally you don't want to go too hard on the curb on the outside, but yeah, it's quite okay as soon as you are not arriving too early on the curbing, I guess. But ideally, if you can try to not drove too much on it, it's always a bit better. But yeah, that's about it for turn 2. Now we're gonna go through the cutting, and yeah, usually you just bring the car to the right. Pretty much when I'm driving, I always quite aim to the guide rail on the wall. You can see the guide rail on the right. So that's pretty much what I'm aiming for, and that's where I always try to put the car while going into the cutting. So putting the car to the right and then turning in, and we're gonna brake as soon as we are reaching this sort of kink. So once the car is on the inside, then I just go on the brake. I try to bring the car wide right here so that I can really have a good run through the left-hander. So trying to brake quite straight also. Bringing the car wide means that you can open a bit more the steering and have a better braking. So yeah, that's actually great points. Like going more to the right and then making like the cutback or switchback or whatever close to the wall on the left. Then you can just open the steering, put the car wide, so it makes the braking better, more efficient, I would say, and the driving a bit less harder. So yeah, that's what you have to do. Now we're gonna go down the gears. We're gonna drop to third for that one. So bringing the car quite wide, as you can see, braking pretty much around the same. The peak is always close to 60-70%. And yeah, then as you can see, dropping down the gears, down to third, and then as soon as I'm really getting close to the wall, then I'm starting to go back on par. So as you can see, I'm still holding the brakes right here, and as soon as I'm putting the car really close to the wall, then I can start to go on par. Obviously, I'm not gonna go fully on par too early because I still have a decent amount of steering. The steering is like quite a lot to the left, but as soon as I'm starting to have a look at the exit, as you can see now, I can see the exit, the steering gets open, the power gets up as well, and as soon as the steering is fully open, then I just need to wait until I'm really reaching the top of the corner, because as you can see, it's still quite uphill at that time, so I just don't want to get the oversteer out of that. And yeah, if you're getting oversteer at that point, it's not really good, because obviously from there it's pretty much all the way flat until the first fast left, like the second last corner before Skyline, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, you have to be a bit patient going out of this one. Obviously, you are always um a bit impatient to go back on power, but it's really necessary to be a bit patient going out of this one because the fact that it goes uphill and the bit of elevation change, it's easy to lose the traction. So trying to wait until the steering gets fully open, and as soon as we are really out of the corner, then we just go full power, third gear. Now we just try to make sure we take this bump easy. So basically just trying to make sure we're not putting too much steering angle, but we can stay flat through this bump. So yeah, just make sure you're not putting too much steering angle, and then we're gonna bring the car to the left, trying to make sure we are turning as soon as we are close to the three. The three on the left, the very nice and not pixelized. Sorry, actually, it looks quite bad, but yeah, just you can use that as a reference as a turn in. So as soon as you are close to the, I actually I'm not using any reference going into this one. I'm pretty much doing it by instinct. But yeah, it's must be quite close to the three. Oh, my bad, to the tree on the left. So yeah, that's a reference you might be able to use. And yeah, you can stay fully flat. Obviously, the first lap, or the out lap, or whatever it is. If it's the during the quali, the out lap, or if it's the race, yeah, the race, the first lap of the race. Just be careful; it's not gonna be flat, or at least be cautious, um, going into this first right one, because obviously with the small bumps you are getting and stuff like that, it can be a bit tricky, sketchy. So yeah, just make sure you are being patient, especially in the first laps, and as soon as you are done with the first lap, maybe the second one could be a bit difficult, but I'm not even sure that after the first lap you need to really lift. So yeah, just going flat through this right one with fifth gear, trying to make sure we're not hitting the curb on the inside to not make the car bounce off the line. And then yeah, just trying to get close to the wall. So that's very important to make sure you don't put too much steering angle to keep the car really stable and don't lose speed. And as soon as we are done through this part, we're just gonna try to bring the car to the right, and we're gonna put it close to the wall. And as soon as we are into the compression, then we just lift. This is what is going to give us the grip. And now we just try to bring it close to the curbing without using too much curb, because we don't want to upset the balance. And yeah, then close to the curbing, don't need the brakes. You can just slowly go back on power. This is what is going to give you some rotation at the same time. But yeah, as you can see, it's just a tiny lift. You just lift between the bottom of the compression, and then as soon as you are reaching the curb on the inside, you can just go back on board. So it's just a very small lift, but yeah, this is needed, and you don't need the brake. So yeah, we are going through the fast corners. Once again, bringing the car to the right, making sure you are not touching the wall on the right. This is a mistake we've seen quite a lot in real life as well. Cars hitting the wall on the right, and then it just basically it can break the suspension. On iRacing, it's not going to break the suspension because it doesn't work really the same, but it's going to kill the balance, and you might end up spinning or hitting the wall um on the exit of this corner. So just make sure you keep a bit of a margin. This is not going to make you gain 5 tenths, I can tell you. At best, you're gonna you're not even wasting. Like it's taking a big risk for a small reward, I would say. So keep a bit of a margin close to that wall. It's really not necessary to go like 1 centimeter away, um, close to the wall, I would say. So yeah, just keep a bit of a margin, and yeah, going on the lift. And as soon as we are even before the curbing, I'm middle of the track. Then I just go on power, trying to make sure I wait until the curb is ending. So basically, I'm waiting the curb to be over, and then as soon as I'm getting close to the end of the curb, I just go full power, bringing the car onto the curb, and then just before the crest right here, I'm just gonna lift. So yeah, lift and a bit of braking. So top of the crest is just right here, and basically when I'm pretty much reaching the curb, I'm just gonna go on the lift, just lifting, a bit of braking, but nothing incredible, I would say. It doesn't even feel like you are really braking actually, with just 3%. But yeah, just a bit of lift and braking, and then as soon as we are really going into the compression, then I can just go back on power. Obviously, not going too hard on power because we don't want to pick up understeer. But yeah, it's just about bringing the car to the curb, and then as soon as we are facing the exit and we can see skyline, then we can just go full power using the curb. On the right, we stay with fifth gear all the way. We're also staying with fifth gear for that one. So you just need to care about really the throttle inputs and a bit of braking right there, but it's really minimal. And then as soon as we are done with this corner, we are on the curb. We bring the car as quick as we can to the left, and then as soon as we are on the left side of the track, then we can start to turn in to the right. And as soon as we are reaching pretty much the top of the crest before heading into the S's and the deeper, we're just gonna go on the brake. And as I said during the hot lap, at that point, you just try to keep the car as straight as possible. So that's why you bring the car to the left, because then you are turning to the right to make sure you have that sort of. It cannot be fully straight, as you can imagine, because you still have corners into the S's, but the matter there is to make sure we don't have to put too much steering to the right here, then having to put too much steering to the left after the going into the left, then too much steering to the right going entering the deeper. So the idea there is to make sure you can keep as the steering angle as small as possible, so then it's gonna keep the car stable and at the same time gonna make the braking efficient. So as soon as we are pretty much close to the top of the crest, we're just gonna go on the brake, and as you can see, trying to get close to the wall on the right. The steering wheel is quite decent there. Now, as soon as we're done with this one, we are steering back to the left, trying to use the curb, but not too much because we don't wanna really launch the car into the air. Locking up the tires, because it's mostly going to hurt the pace if you do that, and you will lose a bit of grip for the coming corners. So yeah, you just want to make sure you are not cutting too much the curbing at the same time. As you can see, we are reaching around 60% on the brakes, pretty much close to 70 as well. But yeah, as you can see, especially when I'm going around the curb, I'm trying to release the brakes to make sure I avoid locking up the tires in case they are going in the air. So that's something you have to also think about. When the car is, as you can see, when the car is on the track, I brake a bit harder because I know that I won't risk locking up. But as soon as I'm on the curbing, that's pretty much the only part I'm releasing really the brakes, is when I'm putting the car on the curbing, because I just want to avoid looking up, even if you have the ABS. But still, as you can see maybe there that the car is not looking up. So I guess this was a bit of tire smoke, but yeah, it might be something else. I don't know. But from there, it should be where we are looking up, and it doesn't look up. So that's pretty good. And then once we are off the curbing, once again, just trying to keep the car straight. We are going harder on the brakes, trying to make sure we slow down the car. And as soon as I'm going into the right, I need to release the brakes because I need to get the rotation. So I'm gonna release the brakes down to third, trying to use a bit of curbing, but yeah, it's not so easy. So yeah, I think I went a tiny bit wide there, but I still managed to carry the speed and didn't have to slow down too much through the deeper. So I guess it wasn't too bad. But yeah, ideally you wanna keep the car as tight as you can going in through this right one. This might be a bit wide, but it worked out quite well. So yeah, but ideally, if you can get closer to the tire wall, it's always a bit better and a bit more comfortable. But yeah, maybe I arrived with a bit too much of a speed. So this is the reason why I went a bit wide. But at the same time, I knew that the car had enough grip, especially going into this left-hander. Like with the compression, the car gets a nice grip. So I knew I could keep the speed good through those corners. So yeah. Then as soon as we are off this right one, we can just put a tiny bit of power before we are actually going back on the brakes. We're gonna bring the car into the compression, and as soon as we are into it, as you can see, early on power trying to make a very nice use of it. So we can see 82% on throttle already into the compression. Just gonna lift a tiny bit as well. On the exit, you cannot go fully flat because obviously you have this. Well, we are in the left, but then we have this quite tight right as well. So we just cannot go fully flat through it because it wouldn't work. I think with GT3s maybe, but with GT4 it doesn't work. So we have to lift a tiny bit. So as you can see, a bit of lift, and then we can just go back on power as soon as we made the lift. Just shortly after that we can go on full power, but yeah, once we are going to the left, need to lift a bit, and then to the right we can go fully flat. Now through forest elbow, you keep the car close to the wall on the left, and as soon as we are pretty much done with the left and starting to go into the right hander, then we're just gonna go on the brake, trying to go easy on the brake at first, and then we mostly from the Falcon a wall, we're gonna start to go really hard on the brakes, basically when the car is straight. But before that, it's pretty much uh, very small braking because you want to keep the speed, and you also want to get the rotation. Mostly, you want to bring the weight of the car at the front, so then it gets a really good front end at the same time. So so yeah, the idea there is to make sure you don't just go fully flat and then try to make the car turn because it's not gonna work. Just bring the weight to the nose, and then you get a good front end. And as soon as you arrive close to the right wall and the Falcon wall, then you just put the carries straight so you can go on the brakes, and from there you just try to prepare as well as you can this corner to have a good run into Conrad straight. So yeah, on the brakes, really carefully on the brakes, drop to fourth. Now we're gonna go down to third, and as you can see, trying to brake straight, trying to make sure we're not braking too hard to not get into the ABS. We might be able to drop to second, but we are not. Actually, I think third remains the best. It's always better anyway with the M4 to stay a gear higher. So we can just stay with third. It works really good. And then yeah, that's about slowing down the car, trying to get the rotation, trying to get it close to the wall. I think it could have been a bit closer once again, but it was quite okay. I didn't have um lift again after going back on power. Without I didn't have to slow down or to lift to avoid the wall on the exit. I made it without hitting the wall. It was all okay. Trying to obviously open the steering as early as possible to get the best traction possible and the best entry in Conrad straight possible. And yeah, then close to the wall, and now we are going down Conrad straight. So yeah, from there a bit of rest. So we're gonna go fast forward, and now we're gonna go through the chase, basically putting the car to the left, driving flat through this right-hander, and then we're just gonna brake close to the 150 a bit before the 150. As you can see, 150 is on the right hand side, and we are on the brake. So yeah, you can pretty much brake really close to it, not in the middle of the 200 and the 150 because it would be too too early, but you can really brake close to the fairly close to the 150. You don't want to bring too much speed going into this left-hander because you don't want to put the car too close to the grass on the exit, because then you have this right-hander, and with those cars like the AMG, the BMW, and also the Mustang, the traction is a bit sketchy, you know. So the Porsche has better traction, so it's a bit easier with the Porsche, but with those three other cars, the traction is a bit um, sketchy, so you don't want to have to put too much steering angle, especially going into this right-hander just before the bridge. So that's why you don't want to carry too much speed going into this left one. So then you can have the steering a bit more straight going into this right one. So yeah, just braking around the 150. Then we're just gonna go on the brake. This time we are braking a bit harder, but it's quite okay because we are not really looking for rotation at that point. And then as soon as we are getting close to the 50, we are just going to raise the brakes, turning in. As you can see, it's really when we are reaching the 50 on the right that we're gonna start to turn in. 50 is just right here, you can see it on the edge, just on the right hand side. We're gonna start to turn to the left, dropping to fourth, dropping to third, and then as soon as we are reaching the apex, then we just go back on bar. As you can see, avoiding the curbing as well to avoid the car getting unstable, especially on the exit. It's pretty much like T1. It's like just taking the edge of the curbing, but it doesn't feel like we are really using the curb. And then, as I said, just trying to make sure we're not going too close to the grass on the right. That's what we've done. The car is a bit to the left, so we don't need to put a lot of steering to the right to make this corner. Basically, we made it a bit more open than going too close of the curb. We make it we make the corner tighter, so this means we might struggle a bit more with the traction. So yeah, we made it quite good. Back on power as soon as we're reaching the apex, and then we are just trying to make sure we're not losing the traction, staying fully flat, opening the steering all the way, using the curb right there as well, fourth gear up to fifth. And now we are entering the last corner. As I said during the beginning of the guide, it's pretty much the same as turn one. You're just trying to make sure you get it clean on the entry so then you can really push through the exit. Gonna brake around the 100 board on the right, so you can see the 100 board. Usually, back in the days, we would brake a bit after the 100, but now we need to brake at the 100 or close to the 100. And yeah, on the brakes, braking straight, braking around 70, 75%. And yeah, down the gears, down to third. Oh, okay. Time to make the full lap again. Made the mistake twice. Hopefully, I don't make it a third time, but it shouldn't happen because it was the last corner. So yeah, braking at the 100 on the right, and yeah, down the gears, reaching around or close to 80%. And as soon as we are reaching the end of the grass on the right, a bit before that, obviously, we're gonna turn in. So yeah, just after basically the 50, you have the 50 just right here, close after the 50, you start to turn in on the brakes, releasing the brakes as soon as I'm turning in, trying to make sure I'm not hitting, or at least not hitting too much. I guess I did hit the curb at like the very edge once again. Yeah, I did. So yeah, just make sure you're not eating too much this curbing. It doesn't feel that good. I don't think you're losing too much, but yeah, it doesn't feel really nice at all. So yeah. So once again, on the brakes, releasing the brakes with third gear, trying to get really close to the curbing, and just once you are a bit before the apex actually, because I'm already on board even before I'm actually reaching the very edge of the curbing. I'm already on power, and as soon as I'm facing the exit, going almost fully on power, opening the steering, making sure I'm not going too wide on the curbing as well. This is a good way to lose a bit of traction. And then once we are done with this last corner, we are already crossing the line, and we're done for the guide around Bathurst. Alright everyone, so we're done for today. That was the week 11 lap guide of this podcast challenge by Falcon Tire around the famous Bathurst circuit. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Coach of Academy channel and join the Discord server if you have any questions about all the work we are providing. And yeah, I see you next week for what is going to be already the last week of the season. But before that, enjoy the racing around Bathurst, and I see you next week for a new lap guide. See you next time, bye bye.